In this video, we're going to be testing out the Ohlins TXC2 rear shock. This is their latest version of their cross-country shock. As you can see, it's an inline shock. It weighs 255 grams. It's got 12 clicks of rebound damping, 16 clicks of low-speed compression damping, and it's got 3 ride settings adjusted by this knob. I'm going to be testing this out on my transition spur. Now, last year, I tested out their TTX shock on my transition spur. This is their piggyback reservoir shock that's designed more for enduro bikes, trail bikes, all mountain bikes. It worked great on my transition spur. The ride quality was phenomenal, but it's a little heavy compared to this one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to some of my favorite testing grounds at Santos. We're going to ride some of the tech trails. We're going to ride some of the cross-country trails. Now first, I'm going to ride the transition spur with the Fox shock that came on it. It's a Fox DPS, extra volume, really nice riding shock, but I want to get used to that today, and then I'm going to swap this out while I'm down there and then ride for at least an hour with the TXC2, and I'm going to wear the camera and I'm going to talk about the difference in the ride quality, and then at the end of the video, I'll show this up close on the bike and talk about some of the settings and how they work. So I'm going to warm up on the cross-country trails for a little bit, and then we're going to go over and hit the technical trails, which are more slow tech, but definitely a good testing ground for a cross-country shock. All right, so now we're hitting the Vortex. It's a fun little trail. A couple miles of tech, some wood berms, but a lot of slow tech. So I got the Fox shock on. Want to do a little while of riding on this one and see what the Ohlins is going to feel like compared to it. This thing's pretty fun. It's a really steep wooden roll in. Time to change out this Fox for the Ohlins. So the Fox matches the purple frame with the decal on it, but the Ohlins is going to match the fork. Looks good. Pretty easy install. The upper eyelet was a little tight, but shocks are real easy to change out. Now I'm just going to get this sag set up, get my rebound, and go hit the trails. All right, so back on the Vortex trail. And the reason I'm testing the shock like this back to back as opposed to, like, you know, riding it for a few weeks is you're going to get the biggest difference as far as noticing it, you know, within the immediate swap. So I'm going to hit this trail for a while, and then I'll just talk about kind of what I think. I can already notice a difference, but I'll reserve that after I ride for a little while. Some of this slow tech that you got to grind your way up and then keep your momentum over the real rocky stuff. It's a challenge, especially to ride smooth and ride fast through it. And then I'll go out and hit some of the cross-country trails that are much more flowy and fast. All right, coming up to the toughest section on this trail. It's just really narrow rocks. Like, you gotta thread that perfectly. This section's pretty tough too. Narrow rocks. I think this slow tech stuff is more challenging than a lot of the faster tech that I do, like up in the mountains. And you got to roll off with the front wheel really unweighted. The next one you got to wheelie off of, otherwise you'll endo. You don't want to do that. So here's a very steep climb that then goes into a little rocky downhill. And I'll say that the shock feels very supportive. Like, it feels about as plush as the Fox, but just a bit more supportive, which helps on stuff like this, which is really steep. And you're just cranking hard on the pedals. I feel like the platform for pedaling is a little bit better, but still really good traction on stuff like this. It's a fun little trail called John Brown. Also one that's a lot of slow tech. Shock's feeling good. Really like it. Feels like the bike is just a bit more peppy with that support that I get from this shock. They say it's tuned for cross-country racing, and I see what they mean, but it's even great for stuff like this. Just out for a Saturday ride. No racing, just having fun on my transition spur. So since I've been pedaling a lot, I've been running the shock in that middle setting. I just opened it up for this little drop. Just see how it does. Got this drop followed by some rocks after it. And then a climb. Yeah, wow, it's very, very plush when it's fully open. Super plush. It's been a while since I rolled down that one. I kind of forgot which way it went. So I'm finishing up this ride on the cross-country trails, and that's what's great about this trail system. You've got quite a number of tech trails, and then you can do like a 3 or 4 hour ride on the cross-country trails. There are so many trails out here. Some of them are flat like this, some of them are kind of rolly, a little bit technical, but a lot of good variety. So my final thoughts on this shock. I would say compared to the Fox, which I compare everything, it's just the way I analyze things. I would say this one feels more supportive. It makes this bike feel just a bit more lively. I feel like it'll ride a bit higher in its travel and just more of a supportive feel. Now I've been running it in that middle ride setting. I would give the plushness factor slightly to the Fox, especially in the middle setting. I typically will run a shock in that middle setting for cross-country trails, and when I ride this bike up in the mountains, of course, I'll open up the ride setting all the way open for the downhills. I do like the fact that this shock fully locks out. Most cross-country shocks do, and the more trail-focused shocks don't fully lock out. But for riding on the road, like to the trailhead, it's really important for me. So what I'll do is wrap up this video here, and I'm gonna ride this shock for several months and do a long-term review on it. I'll probably put the Fox back on just to give me that comparison factor, so I can really focus on the qualities of this shock. I've got some endurance races I'll be doing with this shock. I think it'll make a really good shock for that. I feel like it's just gonna make the bike slightly faster because of that extra support. So I'm gonna finish out this ride today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up for me if you like this style of review where I ride along and talk about it. And with that, I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.